snacks.
What it do, snackers, snackers, and snack X's? It's your boy Gage. Sin is in the building. Jokes is in the building. You are now tuned into Loading Snacks Weekly, where we get together once a week and talk about all the things happening in pop culture. And tonight, you have witnessed an actual 5-minute countdown. It's 8:30, y'all. That countdown been broke. Thing been broke. Shout out to Jokes for getting the countdown hooked up, fixed, and connected. And on that note, Jokes, you got a job to do.
Yes, sir.
So Jokes will get that Beacons link up for everyone, just to make it a little easier for you to find us in all the different places where we are and post content. What it do, Doctor Who? Sin?
Yes, sir.
Your job, please.
Yeah, so let's shout out our top tier patrons, starting with Anthony Cunningham, Marcus Houston, Susan Dortch, Tyrone Carson, Meticulous Skin, Alex Lee, Ellis Mbe, and Kermit Ferguson. Thank you very much. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Indeed, we do. Folks, we have a barn burner this evening. Hey, Heather. What that means in terms of the way we do a show, not much. However, there is a lot of news, and there was a lot of breaking news, and some things that probably mean really digging into some stuff. Cuddy says, hey, yo, meant to say something last week. For the 10-year anniversary, is there going to be merch? Love to support the beginning. Great milestones, and we love you guys. Man, listen, I appreciate you. Absolutely. The answer is yes. We also are probably doing a meetup. We will talk about that soon.
Some point
later.
Not just yet. Soon, but there will most likely be a meetup following Extra Life, which technically will then be the 10-year anniversary. But good question. Thank you for throwing it out there, and we love you too. So here's the thing. I had multiple layers of things planned on the outline for tonight's show. And yesterday, when Sin and I and Jokes, Doctor Who, I'll meet up somewhere local. Should be a good time. When we were talking yesterday about, well, other things, having a meeting pertinent to what's going on with Loading Snacks and kind of what the rest of the year looks like and kind of pre-planning for next year. And then we got to talking about today, and it was like, listen, we'll figure out what the show is going to be, because something always happens. And Joke specifically was like, there's going to be news. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if Joke single-handedly just cursed a bunch of people into not having jobs or what.
Apparently I did.
But you can almost set your watch week to week with whether or not there will be losses within the video game industry. And we had talked a couple of weeks ago, and we've mentioned a couple of times that, like, you know, the video game strike is happening right now with SAG-AFTRA. There are a lot of things that they're trying to do to put in protections for themselves that are very much like what was going on when there was a strike for all the rest of the actors, not too long ago. And we've talked about actually having kind of an in-depth discussion about what's actually happening and kind of what they're looking for and what stuff they want. But every week there just seems to be some other thing that's happening that is like, well, let's talk about this instead. And so, of course, today was another one of those days where it was like, well, let's really kind of dig into what's going on with SAG-AFTRA and what's happening there. And instead, we have other things that we need to talk about. Not to, belittle what's happening with the strike and what's going on with SAG-AFTRA and the needs for these artists to have protections for them and for people who are not in the industry to have an understanding of how what is happening can and will, without a doubt, affect the gaming industry and the things that you love and what that landscape looks like for the next couple of years. So it is an important thing. I mean, we'll get there because unfortunately, I don't see an end coming to this strike that is in place anytime
Yeah.
soon. And I was hoping that the longer it took for us to get to having the conversation, we'd end up being able to have that conversation at a time when we're going, well, they solved it or they came to some sort of a resolution. Let's talk about why they were there and what came out of it. But they're still on the picket lines. And again, an industry wide thing. So there are several other things that we're going to talk about today. Some of them, I'm just going to be honest and tell you what some of the things we want to talk about. If we get to them, we get to them. If we don't, we don't. But the first thing on my list was to talk about this GameStop retro thing, which kind of came about last week.
Yo, yo, yo.
Hola, ¿cómo estás, sir? Is I don't think we need to dig too deep for real into the fact that there's a GameStop retro. I do think it's worth mentioning just because GameStop comes up so often for us. GameStop is, at least was, a mainstay for so long in our lives of a place to go and get the things that we love. And we've had many talks about physical and digital and kind of what that is. And so the idea that GameStop is doing these kind of sporadically spread out retro stores, I'll be honest, man, I don't know how I feel about it. To some extent, it feels like all GameStops were kind of always retro. I'm assuming that it means that those locations just won't sell anything new or current at all. That they will solely rely on making their money by selling back to us the things they bought from us for 10 cents. For a lot more. Which for a long time is and had been their business model, which is, it's a business practice, but there's a reason why they basically are pawn shops. And you began to become, it was a requirement for you to have to show ID to trade something or to turn something there or sell it back to them because they fell under pawn shop rules. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I'll be honest. I didn't do enough digging to find out if they intend to take trade-ins there or do any of that kind of stuff. What my understanding of it is that they're just going to sell
the retro stuff. When I read through it, it seemed like they still will operate semi as a normal GameStop as well too, because most of the locations that are doing it are like their like flagship stores. So like for us, the closest one I know, PG Mall's GameStop is going to be doing it. And I can't imagine that they would end up just turning that one solely into a retro store. Could be wrong, but at least from what I was gathering, they're still going to do their normal businesses and still do everything. But the retro piece is just going to be that additional thing that's going to be on top of it. But they're going to kind of make it, it's going to be a destination thing. You're not going to be able to go to every single GameStop. You're only going to be able to go to these. In our area, I think we have two. I know the PG Mall one, and the other one is Tower something. I forget the name. I forget the name of the one for it. But those are the only two that will have, closest to us to be able to do it.
I mean, look, it's not gonna make me go.
It's cool. Like I think it's a cool thing, but I don't know if that's.
Well, let me. So you see it, like go there.
Well, let me. Like, I think it's a cool thing that they're trying to add something in potentially to bring in revenue or whatever. But I don't think this is going to be that make or break thing, or I should say, this is going to be the make thing. That's just going to immediately say, "Oh, GameStop is now on the up and up because we're doing retro stuff." Like I know jumping into doing graded trading cards and stuff now, specifically like Pokemon cards. Like cool. You're trying to put your hands in other hats, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be the end game to save GameStop.
No, I mean, look, to shut down Game Informer out of the blue one week with like no warning, and then basically the following week announce, oh, we're doing GameStop Retro. Like, is that where the money's coming from for you to launch GameStop Retro? Is in whatever you saved by removing like 11 people who were putting together this magazine, because you had already basically laid off everybody who was left there. And I'll keep it a buck, I feel like the people who would care about a GameStop Retro are the people who probably only kept coming to GameStop because they had a subscription to Game Informer. And like wanted that magazine still, and were like still just kind of nostalgic for that thing. It's also important to understand that, you know, we're in a vacuum, right? Not just as like people who are in the know, like really into this stuff and really aware of and knowledgeable about the news and the kind of things that are happening. Where like most people in the video game world, it is just a thing that they buy. It's like anything else. They just go to the store, oh, this is a thing I want, and whatever. And there are still a lot of people who I think when they think about buying a game, or when they consider, oh, it's the holidays or so-and-so's birthday, and I know they like video games, I want to go get them a video game. While I think they know they can do that at Target, I do think that there are still people who find a certain level of solace in going to a place like a GameStop because they do believe they are getting expert help / advice. So when they're the kind of person who doesn't know what to really get, little Jeff,
they can go there and ask them all the questions that they have, and they'll feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because the only other place where you could ever really do that wasn't specifically a game store was Best Buy. Like Targets and Walmart's never really had that. Andrew says they want a GameStop Retro, turn the name back to EB Games. I mean, they could just make an EB Games section inside these GameStop and call it that. I mean, look, I don't know, man. Like, the other thing I think that bothers me about this is, you know, I think that a company like this, that I understand is flailing and really just kind of doing what they can to keep themselves, their heads above water, you know, or whatever, that this is also the kind of thing that puts a dent in or could really harm the mom and pop video game shops for real. Because now you really are looking to take more of a chunk out of those places that more or less strictly exist to really do that
those
kind
type
of stuff. So, you know, and to be honest, I think the problem I have with it more than anything is that my honest to goodness belief is that it's not going to work. It's going to fail, but that it could last long enough before it fails that it does in fact impact and hurt those other places and cause those places to shut down before it also implodes and is no longer there. And now we don't have anything, you know, like there isn't, like there's just eBay, you know, or something like that. And that is probably the part that concerns me the most about doing something like this, because there is a lot of money to be made in doing something like this because you can just force markup. I think the other thing about this is,
I just look at some of the prices on some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, like, in terms of trying to find something that's a fair price for something retro, or that's hard to find, or that's old and has a lot of nostalgia in it. When you look at what's available online, when you are a collector, when you kind of know that kind of stuff or whatever, and you're looking for it, you know what value is, and you know where it's supposed to be. When a major retailer gets into something like that and they are looking to just make margins, you know what I mean, pull in extra dollars, their ability to push those prices up and therefore more or less artificially inflate what the value of something like that is, even online or somewhere else that you might go, again, kind of causes that issue. It's the same thing as, like, I don't know if y'all saw this, but like maybe a month and a half ago, might be 2 months now, The law changed in California, and so like McDonald's started paying their workers $20 an hour. Okay, which sounds great on paper, right? But what ended up happening, and they kind of got forced, they basically got forced into doing it. But what happened is because they started paying $20 an hour, the price of everything at McDonald's went way up. Now, the other downside of that, which made people like, well, I'm not going to McDonald's because it's too expensive. I can go to such and such place. Well, here's the problem. All of the mom and pop places that were employing people at equal or even higher pay than McDonald's was paying couldn't afford to pay $20 an hour and lost all of their workers going to McDonald's because they could get $20 an hour. And now those places don't have any people. And so you start to lose business and you get in a position where those places have to shut down. But McDonald's not going anywhere because of it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's that kind of thing, right? That like you can artificially inflate it or push pricing up. That forces other places to kind of get into a realm where like, well, now we have to charge something stupid, you know, whatever, to be competitive or, you know, whatever. And it just kind of, them flailing the way they're flailing with more or less no real competition in the physical marketplace that is trying. Like Target's not trying to stay afloat. They just already exist. And here's our electronics joint and everything's digital and we sell some controllers and we don't really care. Right. And Best Buy's like same thing. And they're flailing too. Right. Walmart, same place. You're already here to get your chicken. So you might as well get these games while you're here. So they don't have to put the same kind of focus on maybe having experts and really doing, you know, that kind of stuff. And so since GameStop doesn't actually have any competition left, there's no more Funko Land, there's no more EB games, there's no Egghead software, there's no like those, because those things just aren't there anymore. The only real competition they have in terms of the physical space that is anything like what they have are mom and pop shops. And they can very easily destroy all of that and take all of that down with them. You see what I'm saying? And that's a concern for me, not because I'm going to those mom and pop shops looking for something, because I'm not. But it ain't right either way. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the target for that. I am the target for whatever Microsoft and Sony are doing. Putting it on the screen in front of me and just letting me download it. Like I'm just not chasing physical ownership anymore. I'm past that. So, you know, I don't know. And to be honest, when I buy like physical stuff, and I don't even mean like games, like because the other stuff they do, if it's like Funko Pops and all that other kind of stuff they try to get into, I buy it online, I get it at a comic book store, or it happens at a convention.
Yep. Every time we go at a convention to see GameStop exclusive or just Target exclusive, stuff like that, like pick it up right here. Like,
you know, it's just that's kind of where, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't, there's no need for the existence of a GameStop anymore, realistically. I can't think of one. I know that there are places where internet just isn't as good as it is in other places. And maybe there's a need for like physical games as far as that's concerned.
Right. Those rural places.
Yeah. But even then, a lot of those games, even when they're single player, are requiring you to be online anyway.
Yep.
So like your download speeds as far as like, yo, listen, it's disgusting to download a Call of Duty, to install a Call of Duty on your hard drive.
The way my box is going to breathe after Extra Life. Whew.
Hey, listen,
my can't.
Call
now I'm in. Like now I'm like,
I was playing Modern Warfare 3 already. Obviously dropped in Game Pass, so started playing that. Obviously the beta for Black Ops 6 came out. I was like, all right, bet. So thinking the way it runs, I was like, let me go ahead and download the beta right quick. I was expecting to be a hefty file size regardless, and it was. It was like a 60 gig download because it just piles on top of the other. I was like, cool. Download that. Went to go boot it up. Game starts, mine. I just freshly downloaded it, kicks me out, and it's like, yeah, here's another 30 gig update that you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like again, it's a 350 gig download. It's not like we're not. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And like, if you have to do that and your internet is trash or it's
Woof.
really expensive,
I feel
or you
sorry
pay,
for you.
I feel sorry for you.
Yeah. Oof.
I totally
You
get it.
hope that you can
But
start to download it
can I
before you
tell
go to
you? But
work and come back.
Can I tell you a secret about what I actually think is getting ready to happen?
What?
That nobody sees coming. I think what's going to happen is, so all of the talk, and this is just like, again, we're off the rails now, so forget it. All of the talk that exists in terms of like cloud gaming and streaming your games and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
all of that notwithstanding, and being as wonderful and as beautiful as it is, I think what's going to start happening is you're going to have dedicated hard drive cloud space, like OneDrive, like Google Drive, like that kind of thing. And I think it's going to be included in some version of a tier of like Game Pass.
Game Pass.
And basically what's going to end up happening is you're not going to be playing those games directly off your hard drive anymore, but you're going to have dedicated space for your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That is something you're being charged for or is included with a particular version of Game Pass. That's where I think we're heading. And I think that's I think that's the thing that like PlayStation, I think they're heading in that direction. I think Nintendo eventually will partner with somebody and go in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo probably has way less to worry about in terms of their capacity of the kinds of games they do, because let's be real, whatever the next Nintendo is, it's not going to be something that comes out and honestly competes on a technical level with whatever the next PlayStation is and whatever the next Xbox is. It's just not. That's just not what they do. However, they do have games that like you have to like buy the disc and then be connected to Wi-Fi and play out of the cloud. Like Nintendo's had that for years on the Switch.
Yeah.
The idea of playing the game itself from a server that is shared versus you're basically paying for a server that's your space, that has your stuff on it, and they tell you, all right, you have a terabyte. Just like your cloud saves for your pictures and your movies and your video and all that. Like we exchange stuff and pull stuff out of a shared OneDrive almost every day. And we've been doing that for the whole 10 years that Loading Snacks has existed. We've been using OneDrive in that way. Throw it in the Loading Snacks folder in the OneDrive and I'll pull it out, blah, blah. Like we do that constantly. And do it on the fly. At a convention, using our phones, from a laptop, you like constantly. Microsoft has made a lot of money and does make a lot of money in Microsoft 365, selling you additional space in OneDrive. I don't know if y'all have gotten the joint, but I get the joints in my Gmail all the time. Like, your Gmail capacity is almost over. You're not going to be able to send emails. You need to come in here and buy some more space. Not happening. I will erase these emails, though. Not happening. What? Just because I never had to. Delete. I just got emails. I got emails from like 2006, bro. They just there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Them joints gonna get lost. So like, I think that's what's gonna end up happening. I really do. I think that like hard drive space is gonna continue to be a premium. I think that continuing to put out consoles with a larger and larger hard drive is going to keep driving up what the cost of the console is itself. And I think the ability to spend less money on the initial machine, even if you're not playing on, because if you think about it, being able to play the joint off of a 4K, basically a thumb drive, you know what I mean? If you're running a Fire Stick or something like that, being able to play those games out of the cloud directly off your Xbox, if you have Game Pass to do that, and having an ultimate version of Game Pass also got you storage, because they already got to be doing storage for your saves in the cloud anyway, because they're already doing that, right? So now it's already tied to your name, whatever. Here's dedicated space that really already is just for us to save your games and for you to play your games from here. You know what I mean? So you're not necessarily streaming them from a shared server, but you're streaming them from your own joint. Like I think that's where we're heading.
Yes, they need to do something that's ridiculous right now. The spaces that these games take up is every week. So
I mean, again, I'll be honest with you. Game Pass is making it worse because it's just there. It's available. Yeah. Again, and the streaming works for a lot of the games. Like there are games in Game Pass that I never bother to download. I just like, all right, this is cool, little puzzle game, whatever, and I'll just stream it, and that's cool, right? At the same time, when you look at Microsoft has that whole point system where like we're playing games in Game Pass and we're doing certain things, they give you points and those points add up and you can use those points to buy gift cards. You can use those points to pay for Game Pass, that kind of stuff. You keep doing it. One of the very top requirement is playing a game for 15 minutes that is specifically installed on your hard drive. That's one of the requirements of it. You don't get the points for playing a game in the cloud.
Right.
You get points for playing a game in Game Pass just for playing it. But you don't get the joint for playing for 15 minutes straight unless you're playing off your hard drive.
Installed. Yeah.
It has to be installed on a hard drive. So that's like, all right, you want me to have stuff on the hard drive. I think that's going to change. I do. That when they talk about like we're doing the next big thing, like the next look, the next console is always the greatest console they ever made, right?
Right.
But when they talk about making the kind of leaps, like we're making leaps in this next generation and what we're working on now, that is bigger than the leaps you've ever seen before. That's very different than what we went to from the Xbox 360 to the One and One X to the Series, because from a fidelity standpoint, it's mostly just been upgrades in visuals and then supposedly in frames per second, right? This is 60 frames per second at 4K. Well, most of it don't run like that. You know what I mean? Like they struggle to generally do that anyway. So I think G says, Gage, you're correct. I think that's the next thing. I think whatever that next box is going to be specifically designed and dedicated to do the absolute best job of pulling from the cloud, but not just because it's streaming the game from the cloud, but because it's actually going to be streaming from a dedicated hard drive that is yours. When we pull stuff out of OneDrive, like even if it's a video, it's almost instant. Like I can go in and watch a joint on my phone or on my computer that's stored in a hard drive like that. And we're talking like hour-long video, stuff like that. So it's possible. I think that's where we're headed. And I think that's what they're going to be talking about. And I think they'll be probably ahead of the curve like Microsoft usually is. But I think everybody's going to be headed that way because what it costs to get faster hard drives that also have that space is just becoming too expensive.
Very much so.
Yeah.
On that note, I don't know if y'all saw this, right? The PlayStation 5 and all of its components and all of its accessories are getting price hikes in Japan. The prices are going up in Japan by like 15 to 20%. I have never.
Did they give a reasoning why? Or just because?
Yeah, they're saying just because of the cost of everything, the cost of components and making everything, and it's more expensive. Which and for real, for it to be happening in Japan, which is like you already kind of have a monopoly there. That's not to say that Nintendo doesn't have, but like Xbox is basically non-existent in Japan.
100%.
So Sony's just like, nah. We're just going like to do it in the motherland.
Say so.
That's where they starting.
What are you gonna do?
Right.
Which like literally they was like, yeah, price going up. What you gonna do? Get an Xbox? Like what you gonna do? So, and there's no part of me that doesn't believe that is not eventually going to hit
over here.
Like they did it here last. Like the price jump for the PlayStation 5 happened in the US last because we the loudest. Like we the loudest. It ain't, we do have a lot of strength in terms of what our dollar is and the percentage of our dollar to a lot of other places, but boy, our keyboard warriors keyboard war harder than anybody else. You want keyboard war? You better stop playing with us.
You want the US?
What? That's just so like, but it did eventually happen when they made that original announcement. It hit all these other places and it hit the UK, and then eventually, like a couple months later, it happened here. The Switch never did a price drop. Heather said, did they do a price drop? Maybe they're trying to be like that. No, they never did a price drop. Here's the difference. Nintendo, unlike Sony and Microsoft, have always made money on their hardware. So when Nintendo sells you a Switch, there's margin in that. What the cost of a Switch is probably, I think the Switch is still $250, $300. I think the OLEDs are somewhere in that price range, $300, something like that, $300, $350. It's probably closer to like 60% of that, what the actual cost is, right? So they're actually bringing money in. They're plastic toys. The reality of it is the Switch is a Wii U.
$199 for the light, $299 for the regular, and $349 for the OLED.
So $350 for the OLED, right? So the major difference between the OLED and the regular one, with a $50 price difference, is just the screen. Yeah. And that's a screen that they don't make. They had to pay somebody else for it. So they're basically just passing that cost off to you. And it's a nicer screen. It's cleaner. It's better. But what it probably cost them to make that machine, especially almost 8 years in, the Switch is 8 years old now. So at this point, what it was costing them when it came out was already less than what they were charging. Now, even with the high price of components and how difficult they've been and what the pandemic did and so forth, it might be a 50% markup, honestly, on what the Switch is. But Nintendo is the only company that's always made money in terms of consoles, because almost the only other company that does that is Apple. Apple makes money on everything, every piece of hardware they sell, and you just pay for it. You know what I'm saying? They just like, them joints ain't even close to being worth what you pay for them, but no cell phone really is. But that's what they do. So for Nintendo, it's easier. And for them to just be like, not only do they generally not do price drops on their hardware, they also don't generally do price drops on their software. A $50 game generally stays a $50 game. There is nothing.
What's the first Zelda? Not the, was it Breath of the Wild 2 just came out, the last one? Part 1 is still like $60.
Oh, Tears of the Kingdom. You talking about the second?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm saying the first one is still $60. You know what I'm saying? The second one that was out on the Wii, and
it was 50. I think it was 50 when it might have been 60 when it came out. But like the reality of it is, there's no reason why Tears of the Kingdom should be $70. Like there's nothing like they just was like, everybody else charging $70 for their game, so we charge $70 for ours.
Too.
They're making so much money on that. Because the other thing about Nintendo is they also keep a lot of their same people. Like they have very few turnover. They're not bringing new people in. So that does also mean that they have people who probably make more money and have been vested for a longer time, right? Because they've been there for a long time. But, they got teams that work. And they just like, man, when we get done and put it out, that's when we'll put it out. You know what I mean? Like there's no pressure on them because they technically also don't really have any competition because they're kind of playing in their own field. For Sony and Microsoft, when they make a console and sell that console to you, they are always selling that console at a loss and then hoping to recoup the difference in software and in accessories. So while there is a markup in like a controller, if a controller is $70, it probably costs them $40 to $50 to make it, right? So they're passing that difference on to you so they can make some money. But they also have to make up for the fact that they're probably losing somewhere close to $50 to $100 every time they sell you a console. So they need to make the money back up on the other end. And so it's very different. And that's actually one of the arguments that they had in dealing with Sony and with the Apple store and so forth. in the way that they charge, because it is a pretty common practice for, like, if you're putting your game out, just like a consignment in any store, the store is going to mark it up and or take a percentage of whatever it is at the prices that people pay for it. So if you put something in the app store, as a matter of fact, I can tell you right now, we were just looking at, so Patreon, for our Patreon members, because of what Apple does, if you are a Patreon member of ours and you make your Patreon purchases through Apple, through the App Store for us, you are going to see a price hike. It has nothing to do with us. If you do it somewhere else, if you do it on your PC, if you do it on an Android phone, if you do it somewhere else, it will be the same price as what it's always been. But because of the price hikes that and the amount of money that the App Store takes whenever somebody makes a purchase on that store, they take a 30% cut. Because that cut is so high, that's what affects even us for something like that. So if you're a Patreon member, you're going to see that price go up, and it's because that difference is coming from Apple. It's not coming from us. And in order for Patreon to make the percentage of money that they need to make, because they clearly take a percentage of, you know what I'm saying, what comes into us before we see it. Well, Apple is also taking a cut of that if you want to be able to make those purchases through Apple. And that is one of the things that has been a fight at the FCC and so forth, because they have this kind of strange monopoly with the App Store and kind of forcing those kinds of things. And so it is normal. Microsoft does the same thing in their store on Xbox, and Sony does the same thing in their store. Their argument in court was, we have to do that because we have to offset the cost of the hardware that you've bought in order to be able to make that purchase to make the money back, where Apple is charging you up front and they're making money on what they charge you in the first point already. Mike says, and people wonder why I avoid Apple at all costs. Listen, I'm a hater. Hey, listen, I'll be real with you. Listen, no shade to Jokes, because Jokes works for Apple at the Apple store, and so he's limited in what he can say. I can go off. He's limited in what he's allowed to say. But the reality of, like, we've had those discussions, and we have discussions in private or whatever about, you know, a lot of stuff. Honestly, not bad, just about what the differences are and what those businesses practices are and how they affect people and so forth. And so you see that kind of thing. And, like, to be honest with you, as business owners, until you experience it firsthand, like we've talked about it tons of times here, as business owners, until you experience it firsthand, you like, wait a minute. Mike said, what can I say? I'm a Samsung guy. I mean, listen, me too.
All day.
And it's not even just that it's, I mean, again, I'm an Android person, but look, everybody is an Android person, to be honest with you, because if whatever your smart TV is running, it's running on Android.
Yeah.
Like, it's no, like, you're not getting away from it. But, you know, again, it's just one of those things where all of that kind of stuff is, I get it. Like, right, you got to make money. You got to be able to pay people. They pay people pretty well. They got a lot of people doing R&D and research and you know, pushing things out. And so that the money for those kinds of things does have to come from somewhere. And I totally get that. Where else is it supposed to come from other than the consumer? Right? Like, that's how things work. But, you know, until you're like us, where you're on that end, literally when Patreon shoots us an email and says, hey, do you want to lower the price specifically in the App Store so that people don't see it hit them? Or do you want to leave it where it is so you're getting the same amount, but we on our end are going to have to adjust it up on the other side of it? And those are the kind of business decisions that, like, we have to make. Well, like, all right, how do we even track that data? We have to go in and try to figure out who's actually even a patron of ours that is doing it through the App Store.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like, it's just, and all of that data isn't always available to us. So it forces you to kind of have to make those decisions in a vacuum. And so, look, a lot of that is what's happening, not just as a whole, but to all of the industries. It's what's happening to streaming services. It's what's happening when, like, if you go in and you decide you want to buy a movie and you pick a particular store. I don't care if it's Movies Anywhere or if it's Vudu or, you know, whatever it is. When you buy that, those companies are taking a percentage of that amount that you're paying from the distribution company. They're taking it from the movie, like, which takes from the royalties that actors and actresses get. And, you know, who knows what they pay the best boy Grip. You know what I mean? Like that's just, all of those things are having an effect on how that works. And again, that's even to your streaming services and what they pay per view, per click, how long you have to listen to something or watch something before it actually counts as a view or counts as a click, or, you know, whatever. All of that is constantly changing. It's constantly changing, right? So that is also happening in the physical space. And that's the kind of thing that does force a GameStop to be like, let's just do a retro. I know you always been retro. You always been retro. Like, that's.
They said we're gonna take it a next step further. We're gonna go even further back.
Hey, dog, it's just gonna be like some 80s logos. It's like an 80s logo for the retro. Like, you know, I don't. The long and short of it is, there's no way this works. There's no way this works. It's
I can't
not
wait
going
to just see one just so I can see what they're doing. Like, I do want to see the store just so I can see it. Just be like, okay,
if they actually do like a change.
Is this the idea? Like, but okay. Sounds like
I'll put it to you like this. It is, when you consider the number of stores that GameStop has throughout the country, it is extremely expensive to overhaul the interior of a building, especially when, under most circumstances, you don't own the interior of that building. You are paying rent to whatever that mall is.
Right.
And so what you're allowed to do in terms of making a change or doing something there is limited to begin with, but it means you have to spend the money to make new fixtures, to send that kind of stuff in. Somebody's got to go in overnight and put that stuff up. Like, you're probably paying external teams because you're probably not going to pay your own people the possibility of overtime to do that. Mike says GameStop should have stayed in games and not become a shell themselves with all the nonsense they started selling. I don't see GameStop Retro doing well, and I'm saying that as a former GameStop employee. Listen, Sin is also a former GameStop employee.
Facts.
And I agree with you to an extent. I totally understand the idea of them trying to, like, seeing what was happening in the digital space, having a very understanding reaction to what that's doing to their sales from a physical standpoint, especially when you make the majority of your money as a pawn shop. You make the majority of your money in people trading stuff into you, and you, listen, Andrew, as a former Radio Shack employee, as a former Radio Shack store manager, sir, let me just tell you.
You don't want that.
Radio Shack had a lot of money, man. Radio Shack was a lot like Nintendo. They had a lot of physical dollars in the bank. And because the competition, people stopped building their own things, fixing their own things. Companies made it harder for you to build and fix your own stuff. Which meant that
we'll take care of it.
Yeah, which meant that a place like Radio Shack had no choice but to get into something else in order to stay relevant, which became cell phones and selling cell phones. And the kind of money you can make in cell phone contracts, those companies pay ridiculous amounts of money. And I will tell you again, from experience as a store manager, that one of the stores that I managed, I could literally pay the entire rent for that building selling one cell phone on a 2-year contract. One phone.
Oof.
One phone.
Ridiculous.
And like, even though it might not be the targets they wanted me to hit, they leave me alone.
Yeah. Money's coming in.
Because the rent's paid.
Yep,
like, it's like, once you do one joint, if you sell another joint,
oh, you do the stratosphere. Oh, you doing big numbers.
That's like, however, when you start dabbling in that kind of stuff, man, and it gets dangerous, and you start getting like people like they know you got iPhones and they coming in there stealing, and you know what I mean? Like there's a lot that goes on with that kind of thing, and so like as a company like GameStop is the kind of company that has so many stores, so little with so little oversight. It's very difficult to stop the bleeding. The only way to stop the bleeding is to throw Band-Aid. Just throw Band-Aids.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna leak. You're gonna leak. There's no way not to. You just throwing Band-Aids. Let's do this. And so you just try to sell more and sell more and sell more. So like the bigger you are, the harder it is to spot where the bleeding's coming from. But you get so big that bleeding almost doesn't matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Greg says GameStop needs to evolve. It needs to be more loading sense cosplay friendly. I mean, listen. If GameStop starts, if they start selling snacks, like snacks we care about,
right,
more than likely it would do the same thing I'm talking about, which is put some mom and pop joint that sells international snacks and stuff out of business, and they still gonna fail. GameStop's problem isn't the ability to sell physical video games. GameStop's problem is the ability is that digital sales are so high and so common now. There is nobody to bring stuff into the store for them to buy from them and sell back at such a high markup that they can make money hand over fist.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone. So what they do have now is a stockpile of retro crap sitting in their stores that they're like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they started having stores gather their stuff and start shipping it to a location so they can ship those to the locations that are going to be the retro stores to try to keep track of what they have, what it's worth, and limit the number of places that are really doing that so that they have a bit more control over what that is so that they can bring margin in. And if they can, what will happen is, even if it's not actually working, if they start to bring margin in, that will tell Wall Street we're bringing margin in, and that might actually push their worth up briefly. Mike says, Sam, when did you work for GameStop? I worked from October 2005 to September 2008 and was under an EB Games contract.
I think it was like 2007 to 2008. I only did a year there, and it was over.
Yeah.
I just stopped going in. I just
definitely
never called back in. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think you quit.
I just stopped going.
I feel it.
Bro.
Hey, listen, GameStop. At one point, like I had applied to work to be a manager of one of the stores. Like when you do the application, it's a manager. I went in there, and then they gave me this whole BS thing. Well, yeah, we know you apply for the manager role, but we need you to be a regular associate, and then you're gonna work your way up. I'm like, no.
They was only giving me the weekends. Like
I was like, I applied as a manager, and they was like, yeah, well, it's not going to. I was like, well, stop the conversation right there, and I'm on my way out the door.
GameStop did try to recruit me several times, especially because I was running like the entertainment and game sections in Best Buy.
Ooh, the one they hated me when we when Best Buy dabbled in the whole gaming thing, and I became the gaming supervisor. So we essentially we're doing something, do trade-ins, we're doing pre-orders for games, and the one in Bowie wouldn't do a lot of like the midnight releases anymore. So I said, hey, listen, we need to start doing midnight releases out here. And like all those people that normally would stand outside of GameStop, like, hey, listen, I was cutthroat. One of my guys would go over there literally like on his skateboard and start passing out flyers to people like, listen, we open right now letting people play the game because we have the rights to let people play this game before it's actually released. Really? Come on over there. I'm like, got plenty of them jumps. So if you want to buy one, you good to go. Yeah, they hated me.
Mike is asking, how much retro stuff did you destroy? I remember having to destroy so much stuff back in the day. I wonder what they really do have in their warehouses.
I didn't destroy anything. Only thing I did was work the register and tell people no, they weren't old enough to buy stuff because nobody else in there wanted to do that. So I did that all day long. I got the biggest kick out of it.
Hey, yo, Sin, the kid want to buy Grand Theft Auto. Oof,
that actually really happened. I said, tell your mother come in here. He ain't want to say, you want this game? Have your mother come in here. So do you know what this game is? It's like, no, he just wants this game. So you know he get. Do I say what I said to her right now? Because it was pretty vague what I said to her.
Nah. But yeah, we can get the.
You can get things from certain ladies in your car while you're driving around and stuff. She was like, what? I was like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do that. I was from there. He was looking so blown. I was looking like, yeah, I'm telling her everything. No, you can't get it. No.
Hey, let me tell you how much of a hater you was, because if you was his age, you was in there trying to get all of that. You was trying to do all of that.
I was.
You know what I mean?
But I was having fun. Just ruining dreams.
Terrible, dog.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, man. Listen, I don't know. Like, look, it's crazy the idea of having to destroy like old stuff, but you know, like maybe they have a decent archive somewhere. I'm sure that what's probably going to happen is there will be a lot of games preservationists that will start specifically hitting those locations because just they know that they're targeted locations.
Yeah.
Just to get it and try to buy it up so that it's still there. You know what I mean? In some manner. And speaking of games preservation, yes, it was a nightmare. It's still a nightmare. Concord. Jokes. Why you laughing, sis? You feel like you did when you was telling kids no at the game?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
We've had a lot of talks about Concord over the last couple of weeks. And you know, it wasn't doing well. The open beta the closed beta didn't do well, so then they opened the beta. The open beta didn't do well. Marvel Rivals kind of came along as a free to play and ate its lunch, and you know, the game released. Yeah, straight up, K Dizzle abort. The game released 2 weeks ago, and today the PlayStation blog said this. An important update on Concord. Let's just read it. Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. Your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. However, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6th, 2024, and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchase the game for PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation Store, a PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method. Customers who purchase from other digital storefronts will also be refunded. More information about refunds from Steam and Epic can be found below. So then they go through how you do that and if you went to other retailers. But then it says, once refunded, players will no longer have access to the game. We'll keep you updated, and thank you again to all the free gunners who have joined us in the Concord Galaxy. Refunds for PlayStation Store and PlayStation Direct purchases may take 30 to 60 days to appear on your bank statement. If your original payment source was unavailable, the purchase amount will be refunded to your PSN wallet. Send your initial.
You know how bad you got to mess up for them to give you a refund like that. That's kind of rare in games. You know, you see it happen once in a blue moon when a game has that bad of a launch that they give refunds. So
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, that was the last time I think that happened. Yeah. And luckily enough, Cyberpunk made a comeback. You know what I mean? But still.
Hey, Diddle says our game sucks. We're going to trash it. You know what? Here's the thing. Sin, you make a good point, as does K Dizzle. Here's what's strange. One, yes, it is relatively rare that you see them just be like, you know what? We're just gonna refund everybody. Just your money's coming back. Once it gets back to you, game's offline. You can't even play the game anymore. Which, again, for game preservationists, probably a problem. Now, on the note of our game sucks, here's the thing. The reviews for this game are pretty good. People who played it like this game. They enjoy the game. They like the mechanics. It works well. The stuff that they implemented in terms of like, okay, so you really like this character. Well, if you play with this character enough, you can actually get up to 3 versions of that same character, but you can modify different things on them, right? The fact that the way that the game works is you're playing on a team of 5 people or 6 people or whatever, and you're playing as a sniper. Because you're playing as a sniper, everybody else who's on the team, if they have the big juggernaut dude or whatever, he also gets a bonus to his not sniping specifically, but like his aim or whatever it is, right? If you're playing with the character that runs really fast because they're a team member, then your other character, and then like if that character dies and you switch to another character, you keep that perk that character has, even on the other character. So like there's some really cool stuff in there, right?
Going with it, right?
They have modes where like you can pick a character, but once that character gets killed, you have to rotate to a different character. But because you can actually get 3 different versions of that character, you can still play that character, but as one of your other ones. So like there's all these other things that people are like raving about and really like the ideas in it and all that kind of stuff. So there's something else here, right? Because it's not the game sucks. This is a solid game, right? This is not like what was that terrible joint that Xbox came out with like earlier this year that was just like broke? Like it was the 4-player co-op. You can't even think of it now. The Vampire Hunter Bammers or whatever. I can't even think of it.
No. It was a jump. We played it for a little bit.
We tried, and then they went back and
Redfall.
Like before they shut the studio. Redfall. This isn't Redfall. Like Redfall was not a good game when it came out, right? Barely any characters around, some of the stuff broken, things not working. It would be very different if the game worked the way it was supposed to work, right? And people liked it, but it didn't sell. That's where this is. This is the people who did previews, the people who did purchase it, the reviewers who got codes. Everybody who played it seemed to love it. I think the issue might have been the $40 price tag, maybe, right? In a landscape where everything else that is similar to it is free to play.
Apex, Valorant,
Fortnite,
yeah. Everything else is free, yeah.
Everything else is free, including Marvel Rivals coming out, Overwatch, all free to play.
Was it Destiny we compared it to when we first saw it, but Destiny's been around for decades now. They have a massive fan base already built in.
That game came out so long ago they could charge you $70 for it.
And technically the base version of Destiny is free. I know they kind of went away from that, but that base version of it became free.
Right. I mean, look, you can play World of Warcraft for free for the base joint up to like level 20 or level 40 or whatever it is or something like that. Like, again, you just have to understand that this is a game that has been in development for 8 years.
8 years, which is
crazy. This studio, Firewalk Studios, is a studio that is people who were at Bungie and spun off from Bungie to make their own game. And then Sony bought them. You already own Bungie. I'll keep it a buck. I do think there's like, we're buying this before Microsoft gets their hands on it. We're not going to let them have a thing to compete with, blah, 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 whatever. Like, that's honest. That's my honest opinion of what they did with that. However, I don't think this game is coming back.
I don't think
like
so
if you read what they said in the blog post, we're going to pull it offline and we're going to look at it to see what we could do, right? Which, look, all them joints, a Deadlock, Spectre Divide, maybe a good game, wrong timing, wrong delivery. Again, if this game came out 5 years ago, it probably does pretty well. You know what I mean? But in this landscape, where you have options and a lot of options, did the exclusivity kill it? No,
I don't think so. Not at all.
And here's why I'll tell you that that's not the case, because it was available on Steam. And if you compare it to the biggest success that PlayStation has ever had on Steam, right? Helldivers 2 came out this year. Also a $40 game. Third person action shooter. It's basically Earth Defense Force. That's basically what that game is. And it destroyed on Steam and on PlayStation. So much so that PlayStation and PC players were like, yo, put it on Xbox. We want Xbox Game of the Year. We'll use the help. We would love to have you.
Time.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Think about that, right? This game comes out of nowhere from a small studio that technically isn't owned by Sony, but they're the ones who put the money behind it, so it's exclusive, only to them, only to PC. They're making a lot of money in it. This is another opportunity for them to do this. So they put it out. $40 seems like that's not bad. You know what I mean? $40 isn't a lot. You're getting 16 characters for $40, all the maps, and all the updates are supposed to be free. They got a year's worth of content. Like, they're doing every week. They're supposed to be dropping a story trailer or whatever every week within the game. It's been 2 weeks. Does that mean that all of that stuff is done and it's just sitting?
Yep.
You're never going to see it. All these people who work on it.
If it's actually all completed and sitting there. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, might not be. Right. But it is unprecedented for one of the major three to do this to their own game. Like Sony did this to Cyberpunk when Cyberpunk came out. They pulled it from the store and they started giving refunds, right? So it's not.
Well, they at least gave you the option. Like at that point, they actually gave you the option.
So it's not unheard of for them to do it, but that wasn't their game. Also, they didn't have a marketing deal with Cyberpunk. Xbox did.
Yep.
And it was a perfect opportunity for them to be like, watch what we do with this, right? So, like, in this case, your numbers are so low and so bad, you know you can't make the money you need to make to pay for this. The estimations right now for this game are that they've made about $1 million, but that the game costs somewhere between 50 and 100 million to make. Mind you, this game's been in development for 8 years.
That's insane.
So what the plan for this game was when they designed it and decided 8 years ago that this is what we're doing sounds perfect. Sounds incredible. But to release it in this landscape with so much competition for free.
Only like 2 weeks? Oof. That is bad.
I think they made the right choice. I really do. Because I think if they let it go any longer, the story just gets worse and worse. Mike says, I bought the physical version of Cyberpunk 2077 and I held on. And I've been doing all the updates. I think I have a few more to do. And you probably do. And again, that's one of the comeback. That joint and No Man's Sky are the two comeback stories of the century in terms of
history.
Yeah. Like, nobody's turned it around quite like them. And there are success stories like this all the time, but like 90% of them belong to Ubisoft. They're all games that Ubisoft put in that like they just have a rabid fan base in Rainbow Six and what's that joint with the hand-to-hand combat or whatever? For Honor.
For Honor.
Like they got a rabid fan base for them joints and they just keep putting out updates. They doing like the year 7 update, you know, whatever. What you say, Sam?
I said pun intended. We said the rabid fan base.
Rabbits. That's right. For some reason, it works. Like it does. Like they manage to like keep doing updates and keep the community happy and build enough of a community that they can make money, sustain, and eat. They're making enough money to keep iterating, keep doing updates, keep adding new outfits and stuff like that, keep doing deals with other companies. All right, we're going to put in a skin from this thing and a skin from this thing, and people buy them. Like there's enough money coming in that they're sustainable. It reminds me a lot in a lot of ways of like an indie artist who like you may have never heard of, but they travel all over the country doing small clubs or whatever and selling out and just making enough money and getting enough streams that they're ready. Division 2. Ubisoft
I enjoyed Division 2.
Real talk.
So do I. Yeah.
Real talk.
Honestly, I'm not booting it up because as soon as I boot it up and I start playing it, and because of how I am, I'm back. I'm going to be completely back into it.
Yep.
And I won't put it back down.
I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that, so to speak.
There's nothing wrong with that. But right now,
buy the rest of the DLC.
It's not the time.
That's just Look, again, this is an unprecedented thing. We've never seen anything quite like this. Again, especially not from one of the major three, right? Like, I just can't think of anything else that's quite like it. So now my questions are, Sin, is Firewalk Studios getting shut down? And how long do they have?
They got till the ink dries on them slips on them desks right now before they start passing around the office by the end of the week. 8 years, and you cut it all off in like 2 weeks of releasing. Like, that's just that doesn't.
I mean, here's the thing that Haven Studios has a game coming out. Look that up real quick. Haven Studios has a game that's like a third person or first person action joint that is a Sony PlayStation exclusive. That's supposed to be a live action, and I think that joint comes out in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something like that. I can't think of what the name is. Then you also have Bungie, who just suffered layoffs, right? But they got their team working on Marathon. Are those joints now gonna be dead? Are we like, you know what? We Sony and we're gonna stick to doing single player, story driven, narrative, whatever. Yo, you can't find this in?
I went to the wrong Haven, so
got it. But yeah, I think they have a game coming out in like a couple weeks. And to me, it's like, well, if I'm gonna do anything, I might pull this team and have them do support on this other game, or we might float them back into Bungie, which for them is like the whole point of us starting this studio was to get out of that. You know what I mean? We left Bungie. Now you might get thrown right back into Bungie, which means they're probably going to leave anyway, right? Those developers are probably going to be gone. We're just at a place now where it takes so long to develop games that like we would complain whenever a new generation started. The jump from 360 to and PS3 to PS4, Xbox One, there were complaints about like, I mean, it looks better, I guess, but it don't look that much better, right? And then the jump from that generation to this generation, same thing, right? Like, it loads way fast.
Fair games you're talking about? Fair games?
Fair game.
Okay.
Fair games. What's the release date on that?
Doesn't have it yet, just TBA.
Which is bad, because I think that joint's supposed to be I think that joint was supposed to drop like in like 3 weeks. I'm not even joking. If the I don't know, man. Like at this point, when you complain that like, oh, the fidelity is not as good, we're not seeing the same kind of jumps that we used to see on this new hardware or whatever. Yeah, but you're talking about a game that's coming out on new hardware, but that they started developing that game in the middle of the last generation. So they're using old tech. They're using old, you know what I mean? So like in the past where it's been like by the time you get to the end of that generation, you start to really see what those consoles can do because they've learned how to like squeeze all the juice out of them or whatever. It's not like that anymore because the games that we're getting now, a game that started 8 years ago.
That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Hey, though, you've been working on this joint since 2016? Do you remember what you was doing in 2016?
We talked about last week. Those old practices and game play styles and stuff like that. That's all you're trying to, build from 8 years behind and, I don't know, make it relevant. And it's just...
And it means a lot of times you end up having a retrofit, right? Because something changes on a dime. Like you're ready to come out and it seems like you have everything together. You're like, you know what? Let's do a battle pass because that's what everybody else is doing. So let's do a battle pass. But you're doing a battle pass on a game that was intended for you to sell it at a regular price and then still have a battle pass.
Battle pass.
You know what I mean? Right? Okay, just say hell no. Right? like a Destiny. Think about it. Destiny came out. The intent is you're going to buy this game and then we're going to like there's going to be a battle pass or there's, we're going to do DLC and you're going to pay for that additional DLC. And that's what's going to feed the beast, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you were doing it. Well, now you can't do that. Now we put the whole thing out for free and hope you buy the battle pass because that's where the money's coming from. And so you're selling a battle pass for $40. The game itself is free. Maybe you don't have access to all the characters, but if you play enough and you on there long enough, maybe you get enough to open that character, or you get a skin for a character that's a character you don't have. Maybe I'll try this character and I'll pay for that character and whatever. It's a long drawn out. It's a casino game. It's a whole different thing, right? So now let's take what just happened on that and combine that with the other news that Rocksteady now laying off their team from Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, another game that sat in development hell for so long that by the time it releases, the idea of like, oh man, Rocksteady's doing a Suicide Squad game.
Mm-hmm.
These are the Arkham folks. We love what they did with Batman. Can't wait to see what they do with this. Then you find out it's a live service game where they floating and jumping and running around. It's cool. Me and Sim played it. We played it to the end. We had a decent time with it. You know what I mean? I didn't pay full price for it though, and I would have been upset if I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He says Halo Infinite did it right. Campaign costs dollars, but the online multiplayer is free and based on a battle pass model. Right.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't always. They did.
I will say, I said for years that's what they should do with Call of Duty. For years, I said, look, they need to separate the campaign and the online because I don't care about the online. But I would pay them $30 or $40 to just have a campaign and play the campaign. Well, now Warzone is free. There are still elements of online that are mixed in with the game or whatever, but like Warzone is free. And for me, it don't matter at all now because it's all in Game Pass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now again, we're in that spot where like, man, the idea of what happens to that team at Rocksteady now that supposedly they're down from a team of 33 to like 15. And they are reporting from within themselves that like, yes, we technically can continue to push through this year of content that we have planned, but it's going to be much harder to do with far fewer people. And talking about having people that were made redundant. Like this one guy was like, he got made redundant while he was on paternity leave.
Yep, I saw that.
Like,
that was
here's a call, bro. We don't need you. We already have somebody that's doing what you do. And Warner Brothers has been, again, bleeding. You know what I mean? The whole time. And this is a game that cost them. A game's been in development for at least 10 years. At least. Because they ain't been doing nothing since the last Arkham game they worked on.
Nope. That Arkham VR jump, I guess. But I think that's a different.
I'm not even going to call that because even if they were, it was a small team that did that by themselves. It wasn't like it was the team.
Right.
You know what I mean? That did it. So it's like, it sounds like the perfect thing. They're staying in that universe. They're doing another game that's within that universe. They're getting a shot at some different characters. Sounds cool. But the live service part of it is not what we're looking for. And even for them, it's like, well, we're charging you full price for the game up front, but all the additional content is free. It is. Hey, but dog,
that's a gamble.
The amount of time and hours you would have to put in to actually get that character for free, it's a setup. It's a setup. Because there's no way. Because us playing through the game just to like get through the story and just finish it, so that for the sake of being able to say we played it and finished it, there's no way Sin would not have had Joker. Because that's his favorite dude.
Yep.
But in order for him to do it, not only would he have had to beat the game first and then put in tens of hours to be able to do enough to get through a battle pass to earn the Joker, he might as well just pay for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he wasn't gonna pay for him.
Because did you actually get the Joker though? Did you ever get him?
I almost did. Like since we're gonna be running through it, I almost did, but I said, forget it, whatever. I had Harley, I was good. We just ran through it.
Oh wow.
No, I didn't get it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He never got because the other thing was we knew that once we got done with it, we weren't gonna keep playing.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it tells you that if you try to purchase or use one of those other characters while you're playing through the main story, it's going to mess the story up because that character is technically not supposed to be present. And like the cutscenes are going to be off or whatever, because those characters don't exist in the cutscenes in the main story of the game. So those characters are not even really designed to be used for the main story. So it messes it all up. So it's really no point. You know what I mean? Until after the fact. So again, the way they think this stuff out, the way they make the decisions to try to make sure that they make money, the way they kind of try to do that push and pull. Hey, yeah, we're giving you everything's for free. All the rest of the updates are free. I mean, I guess technically, but you got to want to play the game. The game's not that great. It's cool, but it's so repetitive that it's like, I'm not gonna keep doing this. It's not, you know what I mean? It's just, it wasn't worth it. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not even gonna pretend that I'm close to some kind of an expert, right? Like, I don't make games. But I play a lot of them and have been for longer than you've been alive, Jokes. That's not even trying to be funny.
No, this
is a real thing. So like when it comes to games and playing games and all kinds of games, puzzle games, action games, shooters, platformers, 3D joints, 2D joints, side scrolling beat 'em ups, you name it, dog. Your boy gets down. You know what I'm saying? In some manner or another, dog. Point and click adventures, like you name it, dog.
All of it.
I get down. So I have some, you know what I'm saying, knowledge about like what I want to see. And then like the adult / business side of me that kind of looks at what they're doing and how they're doing it. I don't think Firewalk Studios last. I think they got maybe 6 months before they shut them down, which is going to make a lot of people mad. So I think they might try to hold on to try to, but I also feel like either they are cutting their losses now so that they can use that team to do other things and put them to work somewhere else where that team can now be useful to them in making back the money that Sony has lost in working through that game, right? The other thing about it is, bear in mind that 2016 was a Jim Ryan run PlayStation. My man's not even there anymore. What they're doing, how they look at it, whether live service is the way to go, like all that kind of stuff could be completely out the window. Because now you have a person who is, Jim Ryan didn't make no games. Now you have Herman Hulst at the helm who came from Guerrilla. And you know what game they made? Horizon. They made a single player, story driven narrative game. He's in charge now. So if I'm looking at this and I'm going, hey, dog, what is costing to make this? And then the bet we have to make on whether or not it's going to bring in cash, especially after the amount of time that we have to put into it. He might be looking at that joint like, dog, shut all of this down. Matter of fact, let Bungie out of their contract. Get them out of here, dog. Like, they might just be like, this live service thing is the live service thing is not for us. The reality of it is the multiplayer thing has never been a thing for PlayStation. They've never been good at that. No. That has always been the major difference between what Sony was and what PlayStation was and what Xbox was. Xbox multiplayer, even Forza Horizon as a driving joint, that's a multiplayer joint.
Clean.
You know what I'm saying? Cafe snaps. Like just, you know what I'm saying? The successes that they have had and what they've been able to sell in map packs and you know what I mean, in skins and all that kind of stuff, in Gears and Halo, even in Horizon, car packs and like all that kind of stuff is a model they're used to and they understand. And every time Microsoft and Xbox try to chase what Sony's good at, they fail at it. Every time they try to do a single player narrative story driven joint, they fail at it every time. Sony's doing the same thing now. They are trying to chase what Xbox has been good at the whole time. And they're bad at it. Killzone, trash. I don't care what you say. It's trash. And it's not trash because it's not a good game. It's trash because it's not Halo. And the reality of it is they were trying to make Halo. You see what I'm saying? Like, It wasn't they were trying to make a multiplayer game that had story driven that was also a FPS, because there were tons of those games made by tons of studios that weren't owned by Sony that sold well on Sony's platforms.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the issue. The issue was they tried to make Halo. Why are you doing that? Don't do that. Right? But even when they put their money behind somebody else who makes a single player narrative driven, like, I don't know, a Demon Souls, a Dark Souls, right? Cafe snaps, dollars. You know what I'm saying? It's just what they do. And it's what they have built their audience to look for and to enjoy. Now, the success of a Helldivers is not the kind of lesson that I personally think Sony can take and go, yo, we can do this. They can't. And the reason why is because that's not one of their studios. Right? Who said that? Oh, Mike said gay speaking fact. That wasn't one of their studios. That was a studio they put money behind, but it also released on PC. And to be honest, PC is where that joint took off. Did it have great numbers on PlayStation? Yes. Are those numbers honestly comparable to what they saw in Spider-Man or The Last of Us or any? No, not really.
Mm-mm.
Not really. Not on the console. In the PC space, where people are used to that kind of stuff, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Where they play those kinds of games. And you know who has been releasing their games to PC for over a decade now, day and date? Xbox. Because they're Microsoft. They come from that space.
Yeah.
Let's not act like Sony didn't have VIOs at some point and make computers. They did. But they didn't run software and they didn't do internet.
It's all Microsoft.
Not their thing. Right? So there is kind of a like, listen, stick to what you're good at. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you buy a team and there's a team that does that kind of thing well, you should be taking advice from them, even if they're taking money from you. Let them tell you what the best ways are to do this. Give them the help that they need, but don't try to shoehorn them into doing it the way you want it done if they've had success, and that's why you bought them. Right? I bought you because you're good at doing this. Somebody else comes in and is like, well, yeah, I bought you, so I'm the boss now, so this is how we're going to do it. But I love what you're doing. That kind of defeats the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a thing that is happening not just in games, but in creative spaces as a whole, right? With people coming in, embracer group, coming in, just buying up properties, buying stuff or whatever, don't know anything about running studios, don't know anything about it or whatever, but they have the properties and they find a studio that can do it. So y'all go do it. And then you don't know what to do with it, right? And then you bank that money or you bet that money on something else, and that comes back to bite you because you don't know. You know what I mean? For real. So it's not the same as having like an angel investor who pops in and is just like, here's the money. Y'all just do what y'all do. And I feel like that's more of what they need, which is kind of more of what like Helldivers was. Helldivers being an exclusive title to PlayStation was like, here's some additional money for y'all to do what y'all do, but also to keep it exclusive. We don't care if it goes on PC, but it better not be on Xbox, right? That's the kind of the story, right? That you hear around that kind of thing. So it's just a matter of like sticking to what they do. And I wouldn't be surprised if now, because there's a new regime in charge at PlayStation, that they start going, yeah, nah, dog. Go ahead, let me get that next Uncharted. Right? Because they shut down the multiplayer for Last of Us, which was successful.
Very successful. And people were amped.
But it was successful a long time ago as a surprise, bro. That wasn't the plan. Right? So now we're going to try to do it and make it its own standalone thing. That's a bad idea. And it doesn't always work, man. Like Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was incredible. Lightning in a bottle, bro. Incredible
right now.
So I can already say the word. We do it right now. Put it on the extra life list. You know what I'm saying?
Done.
But Mass Effect 4 multiplayer was like, it didn't quite. It wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same, didn't feel as good. They added a few extra things. It was cool, but it wasn't special. Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was special.
That thing just hit different.
And mostly because it was such a surprise, which is what Helldivers 2 was. Because Helldivers 2 is so different from Helldivers 1. It was a surprise. Let them do what they do.
Still need to finish
Uncharted 2 had an online multiplayer to it too. Yeah, because they were retrofitting online multiplayer into everything. Because again, people were chasing the Halo success. They just were like chasing that Gears success. Like they just like, yo, we got to get in here and do what they doing. Everything had a horde mode after that.
Yeah. Horde mode took
Everything had a horde mode after that. Like, all right, let's go. It's just, I think that there's a lot of creative things still happening in the game space. A lot of indies are doing incredible things. One of the problems that came up today, shoot, bro. I don't know if y'all saw this, right? So there was. Here's the thing. I never heard of this game.
Okay. Red flag number 1.
It's this game called Inatria, The Last Song. Okay. You ever heard of that? Hey, bro, I pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the games, but I never heard of it.
I need at least see a case. How do you spell
Enotria. Now, here's what happened. Today, they came out and said, hey, we're going to listen. They came out and said the game is going to release on PlayStation 5 and PC, but unfortunately, the Xbox version has been postponed indefinitely. Right? So, what then came out, I really need to read you the statement. All right, so this is what they said. Unfortunately, at this time, we have to announce an indefinite delay of the Xbox version. We understand how disappointing this news is to the Xbox community. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts and the hard work of our dedicated team, we've encountered challenges that have delayed our release on the Xbox platform. We want to emphasize that this is not a decision we made lightly. We apologize for any disappointment this may cause and sincerely thank you for your understanding and patience. As a self-published indie studio, your support means everything to us, and we are dedicated to bringing Inatria to as many players as possible. Okay, so now, that hit, they made the statement, and of course, people started thinking what they've been saying, like, oh, here we go, Xbox Series S, holding stuff back, keeping them from being able to do whatever, Baldur's Gate 3 all over again, Black Myth Wukong, all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what ends up happening. The CEO for the game on their Discord makes a post that says the context is open and a store page and submission. We've Xbox Series X and S version ready, but we can't proceed with submission and release. I spent a lot of money porting and they decided to ignore us. So basically, what they ended up doing was they went to Twitter and basically said that their problem is they have not been able to get a hold of anybody at Xbox.
I did see this, and then you know what? I didn't know what the game was.
Get them through the process of getting their game certified so they can go live on Xbox. The game is ready. As far as they're concerned, it works. Unless Microsoft goes through certification and says, hey,
something
you got to
failed
fix that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It don't have nothing to do with the series. So, a community manager known as Creatora said, we are calm in response to fan questions and speculation. I think this person is coming up with their own conclusion based on nothing because we never mentioned Series S and we are not paid by Sony. So again, the speculation that Sony either paid to kind of have some exclusivity or that the issue was the Series S. So the company is called Jayama. Jayama Game CEO Jack Greco has some stern words on the matter. You can ask Xbox why they haven't answered us for 2 months. Obviously, they don't care about Inatria and they don't care about you. The context is open and the store page submission. We are ready, but we can't proceed with submission and release. I spent a lot of money porting and they decided to ignore us. So Now what's happening is the ball is now in Microsoft's court. Like, hey, we've been trying to contact you. They had a whole joint on Twitter. Like, man, if somebody, maybe if we had a dedicated person to help us with it, if whatever. And here's what I tell you. Maybe it's because they're not in the ID at Xbox program. Maybe it's, whatever the reasoning is behind it. But it does shed some light on the idea that there is something else that's happening at Xbox where, for whatever reason, supposedly this has been an ongoing thing, that there have been reports that came from other places and other people that said the same thing, that like we can't even get a hold of somebody over there to get our game released. So like we're not gonna bother, right? And I personally think that this is going to really somebody getting fired.
For sure.
Maybe not fired, but like Phil gonna do some reprimandation.
Emails. Yeah, we've been checking them emails. Yeah.
Joined it up in the junk folder.
Or something. Like I don't know. And maybe they don't care about them. Maybe
I just looked at the trailer for this. Like it appeared during Summer Game Fest. And when I tell you, I don't remember this, Joe. And it looks like it's like a Souls-like game.
It's a Souls-like.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, eh.
Hey, listen.
I don't even remember this, Joe. It could be, but I don't even remember this, Joe.
I mean, listen, dog. I agree. Like, I don't. In a lot of ways, bro, I'm shrugging my shoulders, but at the same time,
Joe,
that shouldn't happen.
I don't remember it all.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. It doesn't change the fact that shouldn't happen. Right? Like, that shouldn't be a thing. That if you are an indie, developer and you want to put your game on the system, you can't.
Yeah, you should definitely.
Because nobody's even responding to you. Like, it's been 2 months and you can't get a response. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's crazy. I mean, I know Microsoft laid off a lot of people. Did they just lay off whoever had access to that email, dog? And it didn't, you know what I'm saying?
Listen, they probably changed the password. Like, hey, y'all want to lay me off? Fine, you ain't getting back into this account.
It's possible.
Or I'm gonna delete all the correspondences with this thing.
It's possible.
Oh, those messages that I was supposed to answer today, highlight all, delete.
Lay me off.
Listen.
Find out today.
If you're not forwarding that email somewhere, like if that email is still live, like it's not like if they're emailing someone, they should get a joint that comes back that says, hey, this mail didn't get delivered because
undeliverable or whatever it is.
Yeah, that joint doesn't exist. But again, it's also possible that when they did that and were like, well, we got all these redundancies now, that they just dumped a bunch of additional responsibility in somebody else's lap. And they like, dog, I can't do all this by myself.
Picking up the slack. Yes, remember Joe from such and such? Yeah, you're doing his job too.
And listen, and Slim was like, no, I'm not. Listen, it's a good chance that whoever that is black. And you already know. It was like, oh, they think I'm gonna do his job and my job because they got rid of him.
Are y'all giving me that?
I just got double the work. I don't even see them emails. I don't even see that. And I'm gonna tell you, like,
we're waiting on them in the morning.
I have witnessed that joint happen. I have witnessed it happen. Hey, I got somebody who told me I'm dead serious. Like, I have gone like, hey, I got a vendor on the phone that is calling because they said they've been emailing and nobody's responding to the emails and they need A, B, and C. That ain't my job. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's why them emails come to you. That email ain't come to me. Yes, it did. I know it did. Nah, I ain't get that email. I gave them your email address, dog. Like, I know that came to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you got that email. You know what I'm saying? Like, just decide I'm not doing it. They're not paying me no extra. They're not giving me double the work. So I'm not doing it. I'm going to do what I was already getting paid, what I get paid to do.
Yep.
And not even really doing that no more because I'm mad that you tried to give me extra work.
So now you really ass out.
Slim, listen to me. With their arms crossed.
They were standing firm on their business.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it. All right, so you just going to ignore that email? What email? I didn't get no email. I'm just telling you, there's no way you lay off like 1,900 people and say that there's redundancies and there's not some of that. There's no way.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
Things are going to fall through the cracks for sure.
You can't just eliminate all those jobs and be like, we don't really need all these people.
You need somebody to respond to emails.
Hey, listen, you need someone to do that one job.
Hey, dog, I'll keep it a buck with you. How much money do you think Microsoft's going to make in their 30% cut of the sales of, hold on, Inatria, the last song? I can't remember.
That says it right there.
Like, again, and I'm not saying, listen, I'm not saying they shouldn't be able to, and I'm not saying they shouldn't cut. You know what I'm saying? That, like, the company shouldn't be able to make their money and sell it to as many people in as many places or whatever as they would love to. And that the money that they had to spend to make sure that they could port it over is minuscule. They should be afforded the opportunity to make that back. But if Microsoft was looking at that joint going, dog, this game gonna be $40. We getting a 30% cut of $40. What's 30% of 40, Jokes?
Was it like 16, 17?
About that.
Like 16, 15, probably 16 some change.
How many copies you think Microsoft got to make to cover the server costs of that? I'm not trying to be funny. I'm really thinking like there's a person whose job it is to crunch those kind of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, dog, it's joints in the Microsoft store that are like $2.
Hey, bro, this show still showing October 29th release date actually on all the.
Because who at Microsoft has got the email to update the fact that like they like who's doing that?
Nobody.
I don't know. Hey, since weird. I looked up the Notch game to look at like pricing and stuff like that, and the first thing that popped, well, the second thing that popped up between is a Goblin Slayer game. I'm like, that, like,
did they make one?
Okay, no.
Actually, it's a Goblin. No, there's a Goblin Slayer game coming out for the Switch.
I know.
I don't know why it's got to be just a Switch though. Like,
it's been a long show. We need to wrap this up. We were going to talk about Agatha All Along. We can real quick. Hey, Sin, what are your expectations for Agatha All Along?
To not watch it?
Great. Jokes, what are your expectations? He's going to have to watch it because we're doing spoiler.
He's going to spoil boy, so he's going to have to.
You got to watch it first to make sure he's okay. Jokes, what are your expectations for Agatha All Along?
Right now, honestly, I don't have any expectations because
your eyes are really big right now. I don't know why you're doing that.
Hey, listen, because I'm just
the question that much of a surprise. Like you don't have any expectations. You're just like, nah, just
listen. It's continuing from where WandaVision left off, which is how many years are we out from WandaVision now?
I don't know, three.
And I'm just eager to see how it.
I feel like that was 2020. I feel like that was during the pandemic.
That sounds about right. Right now I just want to see how it fits into the mix. I feel like it's not going to necessarily move along the whole MCU storyline, but it's kind of seeing where Agatha kind of fits in between the cracks. I don't really don't know what.
Is Agatha supposed to be important in the future to something in some way?
That's what I'm saying. Maybe.
Are we going to get a good cameo from somebody?
I feel like it's got to at least be one.
Who is it?
I feel like it probably
better be my man who's looking for Slimming Witness protection. I'm a flip a table.
No, it's gonna be White Vision.
I feel like it's gonna be Vision.
Maybe. You think it's gonna be Vision?
Yeah.
Okay. Wanda doesn't make an appearance at all.
We don't even know where Wanda is, right? Technically dead, but
yeah, why not?
So you're not watching the joint, so you can't.
Just throwing out at the wall seats. Y'all can let me know if something sticks or not. You know.
No.
That's all I was asking for, and you was like, I'm not watching.
My man scared off the trailers already, and like they didn't even show.
Here's the thing. I think the show is going to be good. Whether or not it ends up being important to the overall MCU in some fashion, I feel like it won't be. But at the same time, I feel like they wouldn't bother to spend the money to go ahead and do it and keep changing the name if they weren't going to do that. Mike says Billy Kaplan because he's part of Young Avengers, but they're probably doing Jewish erasure on his character. Probably. I'm imagine. I don't. They're introducing a lot of characters, and whether or not we get cameos or a cameo from somebody that we already know remains to be seen. Because it looks like there's some past, present, and future maybe in this, but none of it, all of it could be fake. It would be interesting to me if there was a tie-in with somebody like Clea, who we saw at the end of Doctor Strange.
And that was what I was going to bring up too, is Doctor Strange. I feel like he's the only, with the like the connection that they kind of have. Maybe he just comes in
Who
for
else is
some reason
dealing in magic
right now. Right.
in that space is maybe him, but that's probably the best I got right now. I guess more than anything, I guess I'm looking forward to being surprised if they do something like that. Like, I think that's kind of where I'm sitting. We got a couple weeks. We're a couple weeks out. I think it's the 18th. The first 2 episodes go live, so we're a couple weeks out. So look forward to a Spoiler Boys on that because we will be watching it. Some of us will be watching it, and actually, bringing that information to you.
I think Cuddy hit it on it. It's probably going to be Wong. That honestly is probably.
Wong
I think that's
a possibility. Wong is definitely a possibility.
He's the new Blue.
He is.
Oddly enough,
he
should be or is supposed to be. So that's possible. Jokes, what's happening in wrestling?
Tomorrow we're actually going to be recording our predictions for AEW All Out, which are coming up this weekend.
Didn't they just do one of those?
They did All In. They did All In, and since All In is done, we're now All Out. So yeah, so we're going into that. So look forward to that. Also another episode of The Finisher is going to be incoming soon as well too. So be out for the look for that. But those will be the biggest things that we have. I just hey Sam, just put up with Andrew.
It was Wong all along. I'm with it. Hey dog, if they push another song out of this joint, it's gonna be a problem.
Oh God. But yeah, so look out for a couple things coming with All Out coming this weekend.
Sin?
Yes, sir.
Thriller Park?
Yes, Thriller Park this week. We're doing episode 16 through 18. Our discussion for that will be up for Patreon tomorrow. Everybody else, y'all get that Thursday morning. And we're really at the end game at this point. Episodes 19 through 21 we'll be watching this week. We finally got our answers on what is Amelia's past. We've been dealing with that all past week, so we finished the final episode of that coming up, and we dive into how we're getting into all this mess, which has been one of the cliffhanger things leading this whole second season. So we're excited about that. 19 through 21 this week in the Discord, 9:30 p.m. Thursday. Catch y'all there.
Sounds awesome. Looking forward to getting back in here with you all next week for weekly. We'll let you know bi-weekly what the movie of the month is for this month. We had a little bit of a snafu with our selection, so we got to go back and kind of make some adjustments to that. But we'll let you know as soon as we know, so we can get that in and people can go watch it if they want to watch it, and then they'll be ready for the discussion at the end of the month. On that note, again, we are gearing up for a couple of things. We have Baltimore Comic-Con coming up in a couple of weeks. So we'll be there, knocking some things out. If you're there, you see us, say what's up. Man, and then like Halloween's fast approaching. Feel like we should do something. I don't know what though. Gonna look and see if we can't work our way into this Anime Inc. convention, this anime tattoo convention that's local to the area. It's Virginia based. It's at the beginning of October. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah. And we still have a couple other things on the horizon. But we'll keep you posted. Jokes?
Yes, sir.
Tell the folks what I need them to know.
Remember, y'all, just because you have a well thought out plan doesn't make it a good idea.
Because if it was, Concord wouldn't have been removed today.
Ooh,
Bam!
burn. Ah.
With that, we're out. Toodles and loose.
Loading snacks.